Welcome back. Thank you for a wonderful morning, amazing content, and it only gets better. Our theme for today is let's bring in all the experts. Well, we're very excited right now to bring one of Las Vegas's, what I would say is real experts in the art of hospitality and everything that makes Las Vegas great. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage from the Venetian, Patrick Nichols. Cheers, mate.
Hello, everyone. Love the welcome music. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for the IHLA for inviting me to come tell a little bit about the Venetian story. It's really fun talking about hospitality in front of a room of hospitality pros, people who know the industry. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the Venetian, but before I get there, I wanna tell a little bit about my story that helps set the stage. So I grew up in the industry. My parents owned limited service motels. I grew up from a very young age, cleaning rooms, working the front desk, changing pool filters, painting, landscaping, you name it, I did it. And I went to the hotel school at Cornell. I graduated in 2008. I wanted to work on Wall Street, private equity, real estate, investment banking. I was a good student, but not one of the few that was getting a job on Wall Street during the middle of a Great Recession. So I found this awesome opportunity to be a financial analyst at the Venetian. And I figured, Vegas is the best spot to be when you're in your early 20s, you're young, you're single. And probably like most people who live in Vegas, I figured it'd just be for a couple years. So I joined the Venetian. My first office was in the third basement of the Palazzo. And when I signed my offer to join the Venetian in the fall of 2007, I had a little bit of savings like every college kid, and I put $400 into Las Vegas Sands, the parent company that owned the Venetian. And I bought 3 shares of stock. When I started 6 months later, that stock was worth $5. It was a trying time for our industry, a trying time for the world. And we were in the middle of a Great Recession. I loved my first year at the Venetian, but I wanted to do something international, and the Venetian owned casinos in Macau and Singapore. And so I jumped at an opportunity to join Marina Bay Sands. But first I had an interview, and the interview was in the executive office of the Venetian. Not in the basement, 3rd floor, big windows, beautiful courtyard. And I walked up there, talked to the receptionist. He said, yeah, your conference room is down the hall. Walked to the conference room, doors were closed. But there were 2 chairs sitting just down the hall. So I went and sat in the chairs. Little did I know they were in front of Mr. Adelson's office. So security pops out 10 seconds later and says, sir, you can't sit there. This is Mr. Adelson's office. I was a little freaked out, so I walked to the pantry, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, turned around, and there was Mr. Adelson in his scooter, staring up at me. I introduced myself, told him what I was there for. He grabbed a soft serve ice cream cone from the machine, complimented me on my Men's Warehouse suit, and off he went. And by all standards, that is a phenomenal first interaction with Mr. Adelson. 2 weeks in Singapore turned into 30 days, 90 days, and pretty soon I had a full-time job offer. I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with the energy of opening a resort. It's like nothing else, and probably something you should only do when you're young and single and have no other life commitments. So I got addicted to the openings, joined the Cosmopolitan as a member of the pre-opening team. It was fall of 2010. I figured this is the last opportunity to open a strip resort here in Las Vegas. Aria had just finished. The Cosmopolitan was on its way. A tower at the Venetian was put on hold. Building across the street, Resorts World, was put on hold. This resort that we're in today was also put on hold and just recently finished. Deutsche Bank, who owned the resort, took a huge risk. They acquired the Cosmopolitan because the original owner defaulted on his loans. They thought they had to put $1 billion into the resort to finish it. Turned out to be $3 billion. And the opening was nuts, like every opening. The Cosmopolitan was always cool, and it was always busy, but it didn't really start to find its financial footing until about 5 years in. So Deutsche Bank owned the resort. They sold it to Blackstone in 2014. And my years at the Cosmopolitan were foundational. I worked for a lot of great people, a lot of great leaders, had some amazing mentors. And they sold the resort, as I mentioned, to Blackstone in 2014, who ultimately sold the resort to MGM in 2022. And I thought about staying at the Cosmopolitan. I was the general manager and chief strategy officer. I literally grew up there, met my wife there, had a lot of great memories. But I decided it was time for something new. And working for a bank and a private equity firm, non-traditional owners of casinos and resorts, really set me up for when I got a call from Apollo saying, hey, we're buying the Venetian, and we're looking for a new CEO, are you interested? And of course, I said, absolutely. Fast forward to 2022, when I arrived at the Venetian. The hospitality industry and the world was still emerging from the pandemic. And there was a lot of change happening at the Venetian. As I mentioned, it was acquired by Apollo. Its founder and CEO, Sheldon Adelson, had passed away. And needless to say, it was a time of immense change for a resort that wasn't really accustomed to too much change. As everyone knows, change is not easy.
He doesn't like you. I'm sorry. I don't like you either.
I remember my first meeting at the Venetian. I sat down at the head of the boardroom table with my new team, about 20 people. The room was silent, and everyone turned and looked at me. And I felt like Luke Skywalker walking to that bar on Tatooine. I was the outsider. Despite me looking at a room full of aliens, I was the outsider. And it wasn't the smoothest entry either. Like everyone knows, there are no secrets in Vegas, so sure enough, my appointment into this role was leaked on Twitter, thank you Vital Vegas, months before I was supposed to join. My first priority at the resort was to understand the team. What are the strengths, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities? And then came a number of hard decisions, getting the right people in the right roles. We were about to embark on the biggest renovation, the biggest redevelopment of a resort in history. And creating and developing this leadership team has probably been the most challenging, but also the most rewarding part of the job to date. You know, we're in the business of people. I think it's really important that we don't forget that. I have a simple management philosophy. It's called the 3 A's. The first is alignment. We need everyone swimming in the same direction, singing from the same sheet of music, marching to the same beat of the drum. We have a concept that we call disagree and commit. Everyone gets a voice, not everyone gets a vote. We'll talk about stuff. But at the end of the day, when we make the decision, whether you agree with it or not, we're committing to that decision as a team. Number 2 is accountability. What are we striving towards? What are our goals? Who's accountable for what? There are a lot of places in the Venetian where there are multiple people responsible for the same thing. It just doesn't work. I'm a big believer that everyone in the organization wants to be held accountable, whether it's a housekeeper on how well they're cleaning a room, or the CFO on the financial performance of the resort. When not hitting goals, they need to be coached. Number 3 is advocacy. We need to make sure that all 200 plus departments in the Venetian had an advocate at the helm of that particular department. And that we also had advocates for our guests and the different types of guests we had in the resort. A leisure guest, a casino guest, and a group guest. Now that we had the team, people understood my management philosophy, we embarked on our journey towards alignment, and we dove right into defining our strategy. It wasn't about spending capital dollars. It was a $1.5 billion reinvestment into the resort, not a renovation. It was a reimagination that would touch every corner of the resort. I want to give you a little perspective on the Venetian, so let's talk scale. It's the largest resort in North America, the second largest in the world. We have 19 million conditioned square feet on 68 acres, twice the size of the Pentagon. We have 3 towers at the resort, Venetian North, Venetian South, the Palazzo Tower, 7,100 rooms. We welcome almost 4 million guests annually. We're at 97% occupancy in a year, so that's 2.5 million rooms. Our casino is over 200,000 square feet. We have more than 2,500 slot machines, 120 table games. We have a beautiful brand new 13,000 square foot poker room, the largest on the Strip, a 10,000 square foot, also brand new sports book. Something for everyone, whether you're gambling on the main floor, you're playing in high limit, you're in our baccarat salons, or you're up in our private casino on the top level of the resort. Over 30 bars and restaurants, including 6 James Beard Award-winning chefs, 10 bars and lounges. We have 3 theaters, including a giant 20,000 square feet, 20,000 seat sphere attached to the resort, and 3 of the top 50 best chefs in the world call the Venetian home: Tetsuya Wakuda, Thomas Keller, and Wolfgang Puck. A core part of our business since its founding has been meetings, conventions, and expos, and we have 2.2 million square feet of convention space. This week we're hosting a pretty large event. I want to put the scale of our operation into perspective. Yesterday, for this group, we went through 600 gallons of eggs, 5 tons of vegetables, 6.5 tons of chicken, over 3,300 gallons of sauces and dressings, and 100,000 pastries. One day. Let's talk a little bit about the Venetian and the vision behind the reimagination. One thing that stood out to me was the theme. In my career to this point, Theme was kind of a bad thing. Marina Bay Sands, very clean, contemporary resort, cosmopolitan, cool, no theme. All the new resorts that were built, Resorts World, Aria, Fontainebleau, no theme, just great, clean architecture. I thought it was a bad word. But then I learned the genesis of the Venetian theme, which was a love story. The Adelsons spent their honeymoon in Venice. And when they decided to build a resort in Las Vegas, they were trying to figure out what concept would be. And they went back to their favorite time in their life, which was their honeymoon in Venice. And they literally recreated that love throughout the resort. I heard that story and I was like, okay, that gives us a point of view. And it's really what makes the resort iconic. So we didn't want to have a revolution, we wanted to have an evolution. To honor the guests that fell in love with the resort, but also create something new for folks who haven't experienced the Venetian before. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that evolution, but I want to set the stage on our strategy, what we're really focused on with the Venetian. It's 4 things. My team here has seen this slide many times. Improving the guest experience. We wanted to innovate with our brand. And to me, a brand is the physical and emotional connection someone has with a product or experience. We knew we were investing in the product, $1.5 billion, but what about the emotional connection? That's where service comes into play. That's where hospitality comes into play. Number 2 was growing our gaming profit. In the last 30 years, casino revenue in this town has gone from about 70% of total revenue to about 40%. But we saw a white space there to really double down on the casino. Optimizing our hotel mix, getting the right heads and the right beds and the right time, the right rate, the right day. We sell about 2.5 million room nights a year, so this is very important. And finally, driving efficiency, or as I tell my team, let's eliminate waste. We have about $1.2 billion of cost in the business a year, so 1% improvement yields $12 million. How do you do that? You embrace change, you get your team to think like owners, establish a performance culture, and really foster accountability. So pre-pandemic, the Venetian's hotel mix was about 10% casino, maybe it's slightly more. Today, it's about 1/3 of the business. And we like this mix. This is where we're going to stay. And I'm glad we got here quickly because it informed a lot of the changes we made around the resort, now that we have more casino customers at the resort. So what we began to focus on was the holistic guest experience, the true definition of an integrated resort, getting it right for every business segment, and understanding the customer journey. And let me give you an example of that. Our highest end table games customers aren't coming to the Venetian flying commercial. They're on one of our planes. So what is the flight attendant wearing? Is she in a great uniform? What are the amenities on the plane? Does the wine selection match what that customer will find in their penthouse? Is the food from one of the restaurants well catered? Is the welcoming mat at the bottom of the store from the FBO, or is it a Venetian logo? And the car picking them up at the airport, is it a third-party limo company, or is it one of our beautiful cars with one of our beautiful drivers who knows who the guest is? And when they get to the resort, are they greeted by a bellman, or is their host and butler waiting for them? Are they checking in at the VIP lounge, or we take them straight to their room, check them in on an iPad? All of these little touch points need to get dialed in. And that was for one customer, just their arrival experience. Imagine doing this for slot customers, convention customers, leisure customers, a lot of work to define that customer journey. So how do we get started and how do we pull it off? Alignment's number 1. What are we going to focus on and why? Who is our customer and what do they want, what do they need? And the hard part about that is giving our guests what they want, what they need, before they know they want or need it. So that's programming. What should we be doing with restaurants 5 years from now? What are people going to be into? Accountability was another big piece. We got our vision figured out. Let's communicate it. Let's let everyone know what's expected of them and hold them accountable. I think the communication on this part is probably the most important. It's the hardest and probably the easiest part of the job is communicating. But simply put, there's just a lot of repeating yourself over and over and over. Change is hard, and leading through change, especially at the Venetian, has been challenging. And I think there's 2 schools of thought on change, and one of them was really prevalent when I got there, which is change is hard. Is it really worth the work? It's a distraction. What if it doesn't work? It creates uncertainty. People don't like change. The way I think about change is it's really exciting. It's an opportunity to innovate, opportunity to make things better. We can fix things that are broken. And to navigate this, we embrace this philosophy of a 2-way door. You make a change, you walk through the door, you don't like what you see, you go right back through. You burn some time, you burn some money, but 98% of the decisions we make at the Venetian are through those two-way doors. Very few where you can't come back from. That allows us to make new mistakes and really empower the team to think like owners because there aren't severe repercussions when we get it wrong. As we approach the Venetian's 25th birthday, we announced a $1.5 billion investment. But first, we celebrated. 25 years is a huge milestone, and we use that history as a springboard to the future. As you can see from the video, we got the key to the city. We had a proclamation for Venetian Day. Buddy V made us a beautiful cake, and I'm not in any of the photos or videos because my son decided to come a little bit early and was actually born on the Venetian's 25th birthday. Right? So we got to work, and the renovation of the Venetian will go down as the single largest reinvestment, renovation of its kind in hotel history. But breaking records wasn't really the goal. The goal was to completely reimagine our integrated resort from the ground up, delivering an experience people who've been loyal to the Venetian would understand, but also creating something new for a new generation of traveler. And the Venetian is one of the most visually iconic resorts in the world, so this modernization was very delicate. There are a couple keys to success I'd like to talk about. The first is a deep understanding of our customers. We did the work. All of those customer journeys, all of those touch points, we weren't afraid of changing things to get it right. We maintained but evolved our brand identity, that physical and emotional connection people have with the resort. We communicated a lot. We've communicated a lot. Our team communicates a lot to make sure everybody understands where we're going. And finally, we test, we learn, we iterate, and we're not afraid of making new mistakes. A great example of this one is our $200 million convention center remodel. This is the before picture. Tony, who's here, came to me and said, Patrick, we need to renovate the space. And I said, Tony, we don't have $200 million sitting around to do this. It wasn't in our plan. But we heard from our customers that our space is tired, the technology's outdated, we're not keeping up with our competition. Venetian was built on meetings, so we had to do right by this customer. We listened to all their feedback, designed a space that incorporated technology they wanted, lighting they wanted, color palettes they wanted, and everything was thoughtfully designed to bring our customers' brands to life. So now when we talk to customers, we hear them say, I just don't have to be at the Venetian because you're the biggest and you're the only one that can accommodate our group. We hear we're at the Venetian because we want to be at the Venetian. You have the best product, the best team, the best experience. Another example is our suite remodel. We're in the midst of renovating 4,000 suites. This is the before picture, but it was taken 10 years ago when the suites were brand new. So unfortunately, they don't all look like this. But we have new rooms coming. We have about 1,000 completed. We went through a really fun process with this. We hired 10 designers to do renderings on rooms. We had a design charrette over a 3-day period. We picked our 3 favorite designers, had them each build 2 rooms. We had 6 model rooms to choose from and picked 1. Rich colors, rich textures, nothing offensive to people who knew the old Venetian, but something new, pushing the boundaries forward. Similar story on our signature suites. Our penthouses, presidentials, and chairman suites were original to the resort. They were due for an upgrade, and we hired Meyer Davis and Richmond International to design different suites. And the idea, the brief was, you bought this beautiful penthouse in Milan, but it's really old and run down. Contemporize it, modernize it, but keep the classical Italian architecture. We leveled up our food and beverage program too. We welcomed Wakuda 2 years ago by Michelin star chef Tetsuya Wakuda. Brought in Hassalan from Tel Aviv. They have locations in Miami and New York. Great Mediterranean and Israeli food. We conceptualized a new food hall, which we're super excited for. 8 of the best concepts from around the country, opening next summer. And we have 3 new restaurants coming. Jolina opening this year, Bazaar Meats coming later next summer, and Cote by the end of next year, which is a Michelin star Korean steakhouse from New York, Miami, and Singapore. We leveled up our gaming offerings too. This is our old poker room, and this is our new poker room. It gives our poker players what they've been asking for, listening to our customers. Upscale area, great games, a non-smoking environment, and really close to our parking garage elevators for convenience. We also completely reprogrammed some spaces. This was a retail space on the Palazzo Casino floor that we upgraded into the best high-limit lounge in the city. High-limit slots, high-limit table games, and my favorite spot in the entire resort, the Blue Room, a private cigar lounge. It's open to the public, though. sit there, have a cigar with about a $3 million wine inventory in the room. Special space. We also had fun with the digital signs. We built the first 3D sign in Las Vegas. You've probably seen these in Tokyo and other areas. Unfortunately, the car doesn't actually come out of the screen, but it's pretty cool. Along the way, we kept team members at the heart of everything we do. It's a core part of the Venetian. One of my favorite parts about the Venetian is what we call the Venetian Appreciation Award, the Red Coin program. This gives every single team member, line level team members, equity in our business. Every team member got options. And the rationale, although it's a very expensive program, was we want to encourage this entrepreneurial spirit, encourage our team members to think like owners, and encourage people to embrace change. And it's been a very successful program. By the end of next week, we'll distribute it to all of our line level hourly team members $3,500 in the last 2 years as a result of this. So when we make cash distributions up to our owners, our team members get distributions as well. They're literally owners in our business. We're also great stewards of our community. This year alone, we've donated almost 200,000 meals to our community. Groups like this have leftover food. Sometimes it gets thrown away at our resort. It gets repackaged, plated, flash frozen, put on trucks, and distributed out to the community. This one's important to me personally. 1 in 8 Southern Nevadans suffers from food insecurity. 80% of the students in our Las Vegas schools are in a free lunch program. Typically, the only hot meal these kids are getting during the day is at school. So what happens at night? What happens on the weekends? That's where this program comes in, getting great meals into the hands of families that need them. So we're wrapping up our development work next year, and I often think about what happens in the next 25 years. Where do we go from here? And I'm reminded about walking through these massive resorts during the pandemic. It's a sobering reminder that they're just big buildings. Some are new, some are old, some are themed, some are not. But they're just buildings. They're lifeless, really. And it's the people that make them come alive. It's the people that make the place. We live by this philosophy at the Venetian. It's not just a tagline. And it's been a privilege to build on the culture that Mr. Adelson built 25 years ago. People are just one part of the stool, though. There are really 3 stakeholders. We have our team members, we have our guests, and we have our owners, which is the financial side of the business. We get this balance off, the whole stool falls down, and we're very, very focused on making sure that thing does not collapse. Our focus moving forward is pretty simple. Creating new and exceptional guest experiences. This is the journey I was talking about. You actually don't need to build anything new. You can just improve a journey someone has to make their stay much more memorable. We want to be the best place to work on the Las Vegas Strip. And finally, we want to innovate, we want to learn as we grow, go through those 2-way doors, make new mistakes. And while some of our investments over the past 2 years are game-changing, they're not the full answer. Success comes from building a community and fostering a really inspired, highly functioning, motivated, bought-in team. And if there's one thing I'd like to leave you with today, it's this, which is to take time every day to inspire your team. Because together you can create something really meaningful for your guests, your organization, and yourself. Thank you for all being here today and letting me share this journey with you. I'd love to open it up, Shane, to some questions, if anyone has questions on what we're doing at the Venetian.
All right, Patrick, thank you. All right, we got about 7 minutes, so who's got the next great question for Patrick? And again, if you do put your hand up, this is coming your way. If you haven't dealt with these before, up, go. Hi. Louder. There it is.
My name is T, and I represent a DMC called Magic Travels. I come from Armenia. And one of the toughest things that I have difficulty in is persuading the top management to do the things the right way. How do you manage to do that to be
I missed
successful?
the question. Can we turn her up a little bit?
So Patrick, she wants to know how her biggest challenge is how to get top management to do things the right way. So how do you get yourself and your team to do all these great things you just talked about? What's your secret to success with your senior leaders? Great question.
Well, that's a really good question. I think first we listen. We're always trying to find new ways to listen. So I talked about communicating. We have so many forums to communicate, whether that's our leaders being down in our employee dining rooms on a weekly basis, sitting there ready for questions. Our GM just yesterday launched something called Tell Pete, email address where you can email him any suggestion you want. I'm also personally a huge believer of management by walking around. So I spend a lot of my time on the floor, pretty recognizable. People at our resort know me and they are not shy to come talk to us. And I think that's something that's important too. Our team is not shy. We've kind of grown up at the Venetian and know you're not gonna get in trouble for asking a question or suggesting something. And more often than not, we wanna hear about it. And more often than not, we act on the change. I just keep raising, my advice to you though, would be to just keep raising your hand and keep making those suggestions. And hopefully someone will do something with them.
All right, great question, thank you. All right, who's got another question out there? Oh, fantastic. You got to speak really close.
What's an example of a great idea that one of your employees gave you that you incorporated?
Oh, my favorite, so parking last year during Formula One was a huge pain. They were doing road construction everywhere. And this one was as simple as rerouting the way the employee garage worked to get rid of a four-way stop. And it was so simple, it required changing a couple signs, and it sped up the commute for our team members by 5 to 6 minutes to get out of the garage. So something that simple. I get a lot of them. That was probably number one. I talked about the Red Coin program, which we rolled out. It was only for full-time team members. My first town hall there, they said, what about me? I'm an on-call team member, I work 35 hours a week. And I said, that's a good idea, we should change that. So we changed that. And that program, another change on that, we had our first distribution in December, which people associated with a holiday bonus. Next December rolls around, we didn't distribute any cash up to our ownership. They said, where is our holiday bonus? And I said, no, you don't understand the program. It's when we distribute cash to the owners, you get a piece, you're an owner. And they said, no, we want it now. So we changed the program. We said cash in pockets around the holidays is more important than the original way we came up with the program. So we pivoted. And all those came from team members' feedback.
All right, any other questions out there? All right, Patrick, final one. You talked about 5 years looking ahead. You talk to your customers and that all the time. We got a luxury audience out here. Where do you see this luxury customer taking us in the next 5 years? Anything that's kind of standing out to you that's different from what we're used to maybe in our industry?
I think unlike the airlines, where the convenience factor and the speed factor is incredibly important, I think for the majority of our customer, I'll leave the business travelers aside who just want to get straight to the room, get to their program and leave, the physical touch, the real emotional touch point, seeing someone with a smile on your face is incredibly important. And I think it goes a little bit to the grain. You hear about automation and robots and outsourcing stuff. I think we have I have a different point of view, which is I want to talk to a human, someone who knows what they're doing, who's a pro, who actually cares about me. And they might only interact with me for a couple minutes, but they actually care. We talk about our resort about delivering unexpected joy, and you can't do that with a robot or some automated kiosk. It requires people to do that. That's why I said people make the place.